Everything Elly De La Cruz has done to this point, coupled with what happened on Monday night, points to superstardom.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. My name is Jeff Carr, and I am a lifelong Cincinnati Reds fan. I've been podcasting about this team on a daily basis for the last 7 years, and I'm glad that you're alongside me here today. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team, your Cincinnati Reds, every single day. And on today's show, the Reds landed the steal of the draft. According to Baseball America, we'll discuss Mason Neville and a trend that this draft proved for the Reds later on in the show. Andrew Abbott should hopefully pitch tonight in the All-Star game, and his performance thus far in the season is making me think he needs a new nickname. I'll tell you what that is in a few minutes. But I will begin by discussing Elly De La Cruz's rise to superstardom on today's episode that is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, Elly De La Cruz has proven that he's headed for superstardom, and we've talked about this many different times and many different reasons as to why this is the case, but I believe that he is showing it. Everything that he has done is pointing to it, and there was an air. There was an aura. Everybody kept using that word on social media on Monday night when it came to the home run derby. Don't know why. But there was a feeling that the league sees what Elly is doing, because dude was all over the screen, and he wasn't even playing. Elly was not participating in the home run derby, but he was out there front and center. He was one of the main dudes supporting Cruz. He was one of the main dudes supporting Junior Caminero. A lot of different guys. I mean, you saw him having the best time. And arguably, he might have been having more fun than the guys that were actually in it. He might have had more fun than Cal Raleigh. And Cal Raleigh won this thing, the Big Dumper. Best nickname in sports, by the way. But Cal Raleigh wins the home run derby. But it looked like Elly De La Cruz had the best time. But it showed me, and everybody's talking about how many posters and how many billboards and advertisements down there in Atlanta feature Elly De La Cruz. He's not even starting. But they know that Elly is headed for superstardom, and it's easy to see. I'm not just talking about this year. Like, think about this year in context of his career. His batting average from his first year in the league to now has jumped up by 50 points. His on-base percentage from his first year in the league to now has jumped up by almost 60 points. His slugging percentage, over 80 points. It's 85 points that it's jumped up from his first year to now. The kind of progression that we have seen is exactly what we told you about when he was getting called up. And I know that Steve likes to point out the fact that we probably put a little bit too much on guys like Elly De La Cruz whenever they get called up. This is why. Because we saw this. We saw what he did in the minor leagues and how he was able to grow, and the obstacles that were put in front of him that he obliterated. He didn't just get better. He didn't just learn. He overcame everything. And without the risk of throwing too many nerdy references in this episode, I just keep thinking of the Borg when it comes to Elly. You throw anything at him, I don't care what it is. Strikeouts, he's so much better. If you've looked at this, and I know that people have, because I haven't heard anything about it this year, but everybody loved to say, oh, he strikes out too much. He strikes out too much. His first year in the league, he struck out 33% of the time. That's pretty high. He improved a little bit. His second year, knocked it down to 31%. You want to know where he's at right now? 24%. That's the kind of number that we said. If he gets down to that point, boy, oh boy, it's going to shoot up. Everything we've said on this podcast, Everydayers will know, about Elly De La Cruz has come true. This man is doing the thing. As long as he keeps doing what he is doing, He's going to be a superstar by the end of this year. He is already considered one of the top faces in baseball. And I think production is backing that up. I thought it was funny. There were a lot of people that were throwing shade at Jazz Chisholm because they put him in the home run derby. He was a late replacement for, and I'm blanking on who it was, but he was a late replacement. He only hit a couple of home runs in the first round, was very quickly eliminated. And there's so many people that love to throw the tag of overhyped, right, on Jazz Chisholm. Some people try to throw that on Elly. You can't, because he's backing it up. He is absolutely phenomenal this year. And on top of the fact that he's lowered his strikeout rate, he's raised his walk rate. Not by a lot, just by a couple of decimal points on the percentages, but it's over 10%. It's over 10% of the time. His rookie year was at 8%. He was around league average his rookie year. He's above league average for the last two. I think that we don't understand just how good he's become at the plate. And to be honest with you, I know that everybody's now belaboring the errors. He doesn't lead the league in them anymore. I've seen some people say that. That's wrong. But on the other end of this, the overall value that he is bringing to it, his outs above average is still at -3, but that's better than it was earlier in the year. I think at one point it was at -4, -5. And then his, according to Fangraphs, which they use defensive run saves as opposed to outs above average for this statistic, but his fielding runs, the overall value that he provides in the field is -0.1. So he's basically right there as a league average fielder. And I think that he will continue to get better. We have seen more consistency from him in the field here recently. I think the second half of this season, quote unquote, because I know we technically passed the halfway point before we get to the All-Star break, but I digress. He's going to be better. And I think that value will be in the positives, both on outs above average and fielding runs value and things like that. So there are statistics that show that even the points that people belabor and the points that people try to throw at you and say that Elly De La Cruz is just okay is absolutely missing the point. If you think that Elly De La Cruz is just fine, you're not looking at the whole picture. You are choosing to look at elements of his game that point to, okay, we need to fix this, or he needs to fix this. There will always be things to fix. And I say that about my life. I say that about podcasting. I say that about anything. If you are not getting better, you're getting worse. That's just how life is. And Elly De La Cruz is getting better at everything. Just a huge jump up in literally every category. And by the way, his quality of contact metrics have not changed. He's always hit the ball really hard. But the one thing that has changed this year is that he does have a little bit of hard hit, or a little bit better hard hit rate and a little bit better barrel rate. If you remember, toward the end of his career, and it wasn't until the end of his career that these statistics really started to be circulated well. But Joey Votto loved the barrel statistic, because the barrel statistic means you are doing your job as a hitter. You're putting the fat part of the bat on the ball, the best part of the bat to get a hit. Elly De La Cruz has gotten better at that every single year that he's been in the league. He just continues to get better. And I don't think, because, we like to talk about sample sizes, we like to talk about this, that, and the other. His 284 batting average is not a fluke, because Elly De La Cruz will always be the kind of hitter that is a little bit immune to batting average on balls in play. We talk about batting average on balls in play relative to the rest of the league. The rest of the league right now, it's around 290. He is at 345. It's gone down from where it was last year for him, though. It's not as fortuitous as it was earlier. Earlier on, it was like a 30-point difference year over year. Right now, it's about 15. But still, when your batting average on balls in play goes down for the majority of the league, that means that your batting average is going to go down, your on-base percentage is going to go down, everything. It sort of falls off a little bit, because that's just talking about how many balls a guy hits that finds grass. He's seen less of that this year, but he's seen that improvement in performance. So what we are seeing is completely sustainable. Absolutely love everything that Elly De La Cruz is doing, and it's clear that he continues to do it. He's going to be a superstar by the end of this year. I have a new nickname for Andrew Abbott and the amazing things that he's been doing this year. We'll talk about that coming up next. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning on a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. You just need one screen. So, in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. I mean, on top of the ability to see all of your accounts in one place, it helps you with where the money is going, right? It's so easy to forget exactly how much money you went to Taco Bell with last week. But Monarch Money can help you out. It's helped me out. I know it'll help you out. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com and the code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Thank you for making Locked On Reds part of your everyday routine. If you are not an everydayer, you can become one by hitting that subscribe button on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. We're on all of them out there. And when you do hit that subscribe button, you get access as well to the Reds postcast with Tim Daniel. He goes live at the end of every game, and the audio of that will be in the Locked On Reds audio feed shortly thereafter. We've got you covered all year long about the Cincinnati Reds. All right, Elly is in the All-Star game, and rightfully so, and Andrew Abbott is as well. Now, Andrew Abbott got in because other guys were hurt, and one more time I'll mention he deserved an initial appointment. But you know what? He's going to be there. It's going to be on his resume. He is an all-star. No one's going to ask at what point did he become an all-star. It's just he was an all-star. And I believe that he should get a chance to pitch tonight because this day falls on regular rest for him. And Terry Francona announced that the rotation beginning this Friday against the Mets will be Nick Lodolo on Friday, Nick Martinez on Saturday, and Andrew Abbott on Sunday. So that lines up that he will have plenty of rest after this. He had plenty of rest before this. So this is the sweet spot right here. We should see an inning of Andrew Abbott in the All-Star game, but he absolutely deserves it. And I believe that he deserves a new nickname. I don't actually know, and I know that Baseball Reference has the different nicknames for players, and sometimes they're very obscure, like nicknames you've never heard of. But according to Baseball Reference, Andrew Abbott does not have a nickname. So he deserves one. I'm going to give it to him here. It's called AAA. We're calling Andrew Abbott AAA. Ace Andrew Abbott, AAA. Because he's an ace. And look, I think teams can support two aces. In fact, teams that have two aces are the teams that you talk about making the playoffs. I think the Reds have a really good shot of that. And Andrew Abbott is a massive reason as to why. He's a guy, I mean, we talk about the progression of Elly de la Cruz in the first segment. The progression of Andrew Abbott is also very impressive. Now, his strikeout numbers are sort of static over his first 3 years in the league, but one thing that has changed dramatically is his pitch efficiency, his ability to go longer into games because he's walking less batters. In his first year, 3.6 walks per nine. His second year, 3.3. This year, 2.3. Huge jump. But you see it every time he pitches. It's not just because he is just filling up the strike zone and, hoping and praying that weak contact is had and things like that. He has confidence in where his pitches are going. He has good command in where they land. And because of that, he is really able to out-strategize most hitters at the plate. I love watching Andrew Abbott pitch, and it's not because I believe I'm going to get, a free pizza every time he's on the mound. It's because I know I'm going to see a good game. I know I'm going to see a well-pitched affair, and it's indicative. And look, we don't talk about wins and losses when it comes to pitching. Win-loss records for pitchers are nice, and I think they actually use them in contract negotiations a lot less than they used to. They come up in award conversations at the end of the year, a lot less than they used to. But as much as I've talked to Bronson Arroyo and other pitchers who have played in Major League Baseball, they care. The individual pitcher cares about a win-loss record. And right now, Andrew Abbott is 8-1. Think about the run support that he's had this year. He's had some good stuff. He's had some not so good stuff because this Reds lineup has been so inconsistent at times. But he has been able to stay consistent and keep the Reds in every single game, in all 16 starts that he has made. And he is approaching his innings total that he had for his first year. His first year, he threw 109 and a third innings after being called up. I forget how many he threw in the minor leagues, but I think that all totaled to like about 150 or 160 innings that year between the minors and the majors. He only threw 138 innings last year because of injuries. But right now, he's at 91 and a third. He's got a real shot to set a career mark for innings. But he's doing so with just amazing efficiency on all of his pitches. And he is a point, and this is something I kind of wanted to begin a discussion about, and I think it's something we will touch on as the rest of the year unfolds. But he's a very interesting anomaly based on a point that we've been making for years. Everydayers will know we have talked about pitching for the Reds and the need for ground ball pitchers, the need for guys that keep the ball on the ground. He is having the best year of his career, and he's got a ground ball rate of 30%. That's not what we were talking about. We were hoping for guys to have, 40% and even higher than that ground ball rates at Great American Ballpark, because you put a ball in the air at Great American, feels like it's a bit of a gamble, right? Feels like you're playing a little bit of baseball Russian roulette. But that's not necessarily the strategy with a lot of different teams. And you can say, well, different teams don't have to play at Great American Ballpark for 81 games. And you would be right about that. But there is a belief amongst some organizations that if a pitcher allows 1,000 fly balls in a year, that 900 of those fly balls are good outcomes for the team. They're outs. 100 of them are not. So 50 of them turn into homers, 50 of them turn into extra base hits. I think that Andrew Abbott is kind of trying to prove that, not that he himself is trying to prove that, but his statistics are proving that when it comes to the Reds. And I wonder about this. I'm going to continue to monitor this a little bit, but he is not giving up ground balls at a crazy rate. He's not doing what Nick Martinez does. He's not doing what, Emilio Pagan does when he gives up contact or things like that. It's not staying on the ground, but he's still getting favorable outcomes because he's limiting the barrels. He's limiting the hard contact. And that's been the biggest change for him this year, is that he's above average when it comes to missing barrels. He's very above average, almost, in the range of good when it comes to limiting average exit velocity from opposing hitters. So they're not hitting the ball very well against him. He is doing everything. And I think that, the one thing I would say, and the one big argument that you could throw at me here, and I would agree with you, that he does need to improve on is his strikeout rate. And then he would be a bona fide ace. But he's got the one thing right now that Hunter Green doesn't seem to have. And that's the ability to stay on the mound. Knock on wood, I know we have a horrible track record of luck with that here in Cincinnati for whatever reason. Knock on wood, all things, fingers crossed, trying to not be a jinx. I tend to do that. Everydayers will know. But when it comes to what he is providing, he's doing all of this, and he is being consistent with being on the field. That's been the hardest thing for Hunter Green. That's been the hardest thing for Nick Lodolo. For this entire pitching staff, even Graham Ashcraft, when he was a starter, was on again, off again when it came to the injured list. That, for me, is the biggest point of argument that if you wanted to say you gotta pick one or the other, I might be leaning toward Andrew Abbott because of his availability. Availability is the best ability. Because you could be Cy Young, but if you're only pitching half the year, that's a harder conversation to have. It's the reason why I keep seeing rumors about the Reds being linked to Byron Buxton, and I'm not as excited about that as I would be other players. because Byron Buxton has a huge track record of missing a lot of time. In his 11-year career, he's played just about exactly 50% of the games that he is supposed to have been in because of injury. I feel the same way when it comes to, I feel the opposite way about Andrew Abbott. It just feels like he is a rock for this rotation. And he's pitched super well this year. And I think he deserves a new nickname. It's AAA. Ace Andrew Abbott. All right, switching gears here. We'll wrap up the draft because the Reds landed the steal of the MLB draft according to Baseball America. I'll tell you why next. Get the supplies that you need from the site that's made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're working in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product information to help you get the job done right. If you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service. You will always talk to a real person when you call Supply House. And for the trade pros looking for that extra edge, they've got their free Trade Master program that offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage of this, and now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. If you can't watch us on YouTube, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcast app. We're on all of them out there. Make sure you check us out there today. All right, according to Baseball America, Mason Neville, the Reds' fourth-round pick, outfielder out of Oregon, was the best pick of day 2 and arguably the steal of the draft. In fact, according to Baseball America's Peter Flaherty, Mason Neville ranked inside the top 60 of the final Baseball America 500. They rank the top 500 players in the draft. And yes, there are more than 500 players that get drafted, but Baseball America had him in the top 60. I think he actually landed around 49, if I'm right. But he had legitimate top 2-round pick buzz. There were rumors that he was going to get picked there in the first 2 rounds. Yet he fell to the Reds in the 4th. And according to Peter Flaherty, Neville has an exciting set of tools. And it all came together for the first time in 2025 for the Oregon outfielder. He is 6'3". He's got a really athletic frame, 6'3", 210 pounds. The one thing that needs refining is his hit tool, his ability to make contact. But he has a chance to have 3 plus or better tools. Now, we talk about the scouting scale a lot when it comes to draft picks and prospects and things like that. Plus is a grade of 60 or 60 to 65 on that 20 to 80 scale, which means that he has 3 tools that are at least 60. They said that his speed is a 60, his arm is a 60, and his raw power is a 60. Now, raw power does not mean game power. Those are 2 different things. But they believe that with refinement and with some training in the Reds minor league system, he could tap into that and really become a good power hitter. He had the most home runs in college baseball last year. Now, that's hard to translate into what it means for even minor league baseball because he played in the Pac-12 or Pac-2. I forget how they call it anymore. Conferences are weird in college, but he played in the Pac, and that's not necessarily one of the top conferences in college baseball, so he wasn't facing the top pitching, as opposed to like if he were in the SEC or the ACC, or even the Big Ten. But they note that it's a huge jump. Like everything came together for him in 2025. He was making a lot of great contact. He has really fast bat speed, and he has a really good approach at the plate. So that's really something that the Reds can work with. And I think that Mason Neville has a chance. that if he has a good year next year, I don't know if he plays any this year. He might play a little bit and then get shut down because the minor league season does not last as long as the major league season does. But I think that, if he has a good year next year, we could be talking about him as the best outfield prospect in the system because there are a lot of people that really like him. And I even got a text from our Locked On Marlins host, Jeremiah Geiger, and he's a big fan of Oregon athletics. And he said that he watched a lot of Mason Neville this year, and he said, man, that dude's got a lot of power. You guys are really going to like him. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he can develop. But the key note on Neville, on top of the fact that he was like the steal of the draft, and that's kind of why I wanted to focus on him, the Reds made so many picks in day 2 of the draft. And when you look at their entire draft haul, there's some of them that, like in the later rounds, they're high school players that are committed to college and have already confirmed that they're going to go to college. They're going to forego signing with the Reds. But the reason that you pick that player is that if they do on the off chance choose you, then you can train that guy. That's why, because I got some questions from people asking, like, why would the Reds pick a guy that they know isn't going to come to them? It's like, well, because maybe they do choose to go to the Reds. But the point is, if the Reds didn't pick him, somebody else would have picked him, and at least the Reds now have a shot to be one of 2 choices for that player. Anyway, I digress. The whole reason that I'm pointing out Mason Neville is that he's the most notable guy that the Reds got on day 2, and according to Baseball America, the most notable player that was picked on day 2. And I think that that's really impressive to see that the Reds landed a guy like this. It's also really impressive to see that the Reds feel comfortable enough that they are betting on their ability to develop a player's hitting ability. And when it comes to tools, they split up the hit tool and the power and game power. Like, because it's contact, right? The ability to contact the baseball is what they're talking about when they talk about a player's hit tool. And the Reds feel confident enough that they can develop that. There's something that they've gone through a renaissance here these last couple of years. It started with Dick Williams, really took off when Nick Krall took over as president of baseball ops. But they really revamped their player development system. Most of it was focused early on pitching, and I think we're seeing the dividends of that now. We'll continue to see the dividends of that for years to come. But they feel comfortable enough to start betting on their ability to develop hitters, which we haven't seen a lot of here recently. In fact, there was a great article in the Washington Post that I saw where they broke down, and it was from a Nationals perspective, a Washington Nationals perspective, but they broke down the amount of wins above replacement that were generated from draft picks for the last 10 years on the position side. So discounting pitchers and players drafted, or position players drafted by team for the last 10 years. And the Reds have only generated like 34, where league average is 63. So they're well below league average. This is something that they have a lot to prove in. They have a lot of ground to really change people's minds, because there's a lot of folks that see the Reds and say, all right, the pitching looks good. The pitching development looks good. But what about the hitting? You can't just develop half a team, right? Unless you really develop like all the pitchers in the world and you trade for hitters that other teams have developed, drafted and developed. But the idea with the Reds, and Nick Krall said this multiple times, and it will continue to be this way long after Nick Krall, it will continue to be this way long after the Castellinis, is that where the Reds are positioned financially amongst other teams, unless they go and somehow get a guy like Steve Cohen, that baseball is a passion project for him and he just throws money at it because he loves it. They're going to get owners that balance spending with revenue and all this other stuff, all the boring businessy things about baseball. But because of that, the way that the Reds succeed the most is through drafting and developing, which they've not been good at for the large part of my life, which is why they haven't been good for the large part of my life, the last 35 years. Forgot how old I was for a second. But for that time, that's how this team has failed, is because the majority of the core of this team cannot be bought through free agency. And if you're not drafting and developing, that means you do not have a deep talent pool in the minor leagues with which to trade from. So you can't sign free agents. You can't trade for players. So what are you doing? And if you're not developing, then of course, you've got that. So that's where the Reds have really focused their attention. And it's not the sexy thing. It's not the headline grabbing thing. It's not something that we see immediate dividends of. It has taken a few years for them to get to this point with the pitching. It's going to take them a few years to get to this point with the hitting. But it feels like this year marked a point in their player development strategy that they said, okay, we feel comfortable enough now to bet on our ability to develop the hitting side of things. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that all turns out. I'll be watching Mason Neville closely. I'll be watching a lot of these draft picks closely because, the Reds picked a lot of high school talent in this. The other part of this draft, and it's a little bit more of a passive point of me, I don't feel strongly about this, but just kind of based on how they aimed their picks this year, I kind of feel like they think that their organizational depth as far as prospects are concerned are in a good place now that they can look to, a couple of waves down the line. That's why they went with high school picks for their first two picks. But I think that ultimately that's a good thing. We'll see exactly how that develops. That's like I said, passive point that I have about that. But that's wrapping up the draft. We'll talk a lot more about the trade deadline coming up. Reds definitely need to make some moves. I've got some outfielders, some relief pitchers, and maybe a starting pitcher or two that they should target. We'll discuss that on tomorrow's show. Steve should be back with me as well. He's been traveling today, going back to Hawaii, had a nice trip here to Ohio. It was great to see him. Always great to hang out with him. Thanks to everybody who came up and said hey to us at the ballpark. Appreciate that. But he'll be back with me here tomorrow. Make sure that you subscribe, become an everydayer. If you're not an everydayer and you got to this point, you definitely need to become an everydayer. Hit that subscribe button here on YouTube and on the audio feed. Remember, that also gets you the Reds postcast with Tim Daniel going live at the end of every ball game. And now, for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, as Sully's got you covered all throughout the All-Star break. Going to break down all the big news around the league. But until tomorrow, you can always trust that we will be Locked On Reds every single day.